Hi everyone, this is Dan, and this is Shihaikyo by Billy Tucci, I think Stephen Peros, and Gardenio Lima. And I think Hi-Fi Design does I believe the colors. Let's check real quick here. Hi-Fi Design, yeah, they do the colors for this book. So Shihaikyo. By the way, my particular package came with this stuff. This is the ash can, and this is the. You got a little poster and a bunch of trading cards and a patch and a bunch of other crazy stuff. I think this is a sticker. Well, not, man, you got a lot of stuff in here. Here's what I will say though. So those of you who remember, I did the She Return of the Warrior a while back. Loved that campaign. It was a fantastic Indiegogo campaign. And I guess I'll get started right away. Shihaikyo, well, it's an excellent book. For crowdfunding, I don't like it nearly as much as the first crowdfunder, and there's a couple reasons why. Number one, this was a lot more expensive than the previous one. I believe She Return of the Warrior was like $20 or $24 or something. This is more the standard $25 price, which is okay. You got a pretty decent sized comic book for the price. It's not like he gave you, like Billy gave you the 48 page, treatment. This is, I think, 64 pages with some extra art in the back too. The other reason why I'm not nearly as bullish on this book as I was on the first one is it's very clear when you read Shihaikyo that it's written in a manner as like a middle book or a middle chapter in a larger big graphic novel book. It's not really treated very much as a standalone. It's treated very much as like, no, this is something we're going to repackage later as the middle chapter in a graphic novel. And those of you know, I'm not a big fan of that. I like the books to stand on their own. And there's a couple things that I think would improve Shihaikyo in doing that. One of it is you have like this nice wall of just explanation of the background of She, and as well as a little bit of information, right here with Anna Ishikawa. I think instead of starting with page 1, jumping into the action, I would probably recommend, if this ever gets like remastered or something like that, instead start with this one instead. Right? Start here. Here's what I would do. I'm not trying to be nitpicky here, but I would put the credits in the front so you see who does what, right? And then I would put this on page 1, and then the character page right here on page 2. And the reason being is that it's been a while since I read She Return of the Warrior, and honestly, the first 5-7 pages, honestly, the whole book really just assumes you are literally starting right after She Return of the Warrior. And that would probably be fine if this was collected. I think Billy Tucci's plan is for this to be a trilogy. So if they're all collected into 3, I think it's going to work just perfectly fine. But as a standalone book, it's a little bit rough. And a lot of it is you're just sitting there trying to remember what the hell happened in the previous issue. And this book really needs a bit of, a bit of 1980s Marvel, kind of like, hey, while this action is going on and you got all this open space here, a little bit of third-person narration kind of catching up the reader. Like, look at this. You got open space, open space, open space. I think some caption boxes here catching up the reader would have helped out Shihaikyo overall. I still like the book. There's a couple nitpicky parts, and I'll go over it right here. But I would say, if I gave She Return of the Warrior a 10 out of 10, I would say Shihaikyo is more like an 8, 7.5 out of 10. It's still good, but ultimately it's more expensive and not nearly as easy to jump into as Return of the Warrior. If the ultimate goal is this to be the middle chapter in a big graphic novel, then I think Shihaikyo is fine. But I think as a standalone book, it could be improved a bit. So anyhow, let's just jump into this. Spoilers begin right now. When we last left off, Anna Ishikawa was basically tracking down Arashi, and they've broken back in their home, and this weirdo named Blevins, who was kind of working with her to find Arashi, who's kind of like her old arch nemesis. He broke into her home, fucked up her grandfather pretty bad, and then kidnapped her daughter. And you can see here, this is kind of like the flashback scene of Hotaro. This is Anna Ishikawa's daughter fighting with this Blevins character. And you got like a lot of going back and forth. I like the action here is really, really nice. I'm not 100% sure how the art flow worked. I think Billy Tucci did the pencils, and I think someone did the inks, or like certain pages maybe penciled by other people, or maybe Billy Tucci did the layouts and whatnot. I know Stephen Peros is the writer, but the plot story is both Stephen Peros and Billy Tucci. So anyhow, Hotaro kind of puts up a pretty tough fight with Blevins, but ultimately she fails. Here comes Anna and Arashi, and they find Anna's grandfather strung up in this whatchamacallit. What is this called again? Like, he repeats it like a bajillion times too. Like, losing my mind. Yeah, interesting thing about the way this book was edited, right? So a lot of the Japanese words get an editing translation box or explanation box, and to me, it's mostly needed for stuff like kakurega, the lair in Japanese, but other stuff like bushido doesn't really need to be given a caption box. I would have rather saved these caption boxes for some good old-fashioned third-person narration. I think it would have helped this book a lot more than the others. Anyhow, Anna explains to Detective, what's his name? Man, it's an Italian name too. I'm trying to remember what it is. See, this is why it would have been nice to have the character page in the front rather than in the back, because you're trying to remember all these characters as you're getting back into the book, but it just throws you right in the deep end. And I think in that area, the editor kind of should have fed that back to Billy and Steven, that hey, you kind of have to ease the reader back into this, right, and explain what's kind of going on here, because that's what kind of hurts the book for me, is that I was kind of having to slog through and remember things, or go back and grab Return of the Warrior and figure things out. And you never want to make a comic book a research project. You really want to make sure that, any time you pick up any book, right, you get sucked into it and easily understand what's going on. And while the action and the pacing is very good, Shihaikyo, it's a bit confusing and a bit difficult to figure out and catch up what's going on when you're first jumping into this, coming in fresh, right? Like I said, I like the personality here and all the art. It's like really good here. I like Hotaro, and then this is Blevins. He was a psychiatrist in the previous issue, and apparently he's crazy. He cray. So it's Detective La Bianca. Yeah, is that an Italian name? I think it's an Italian name. I might be wrong on that one, but anyway. So it turns out the rest of the book essentially becomes like a detective story, right? They're essentially trying to find out where this Blevins character is located. You get some flashbacks here with Anna when she first had her daughter. This is her ex-husband who is in jail for basically going Judge Dredd in the original She series. And you get some the art has a lot of personality. I really enjoyed the first She Indiegogo campaign, and also She Way of the Warrior, that original 90s art. But yeah, man, this is like, I don't know if the pencils are Billy Tucci. I'm not 100% sure. I think they are, but they feel like they're Billy Tucci's, because there's a lot of personality in the art. It's just, you can tell, the sequential art design here is done by someone who's been doing it for a very, very long time. You got this weirdness. So there's some unexplained sort of peculiarities with the plot here, like Blevins not killing Anna's grandfather. It's kind of weird here. And then all of these ghosts that kind of pop out of nowhere. Again, this all would have been easily... Now, you would have had to do an exposition dump, which is usually not the way you want to do writing. But in this case, an exposition dump might have really helped a lot of parts here where I just straight got confused. So these ghosts end up being what this dude like kind of commands and stuff. That's kind of the inference here in the writing. But you know, it just comes out of left field, and you're kind of like, what in the heck is going on? So anyhow, this dude who's a psychopath, he calls Anna's husband to kind of freak him out. And then Anna's kind of running around being a detective right here, Sherlock. And then Arashi goes and discovers where his hideout's at, and they fight each other. And then Blevins ends up defeating Arashi. And so, for whatever reason, he lets Arashi live. And the primary reason is that Blevins' motivation is to, get Anna to fall in love with him. He's obsessed with she. And this was kind of set up in the first book, but it's not really explained for you when you're jumping into here. Again, you know, if this was the middle chapter of, you know, a big graphic novel, not necessary, but in this case, because it's a standalone book and there's a lot of time in between the books, I think it would have been wiser to do a little bit of exposition here or catch the reader up to what's going on. Anyhow, she dons the costume now that she knows where the hideout's at, and we essentially get into the final conflict here. And then for whatever reason, and this is kind of confusing, and this again is where the editor kind of didn't help out Billy and Steve here. He really should have thought about this from the sense of someone just jumping in. So we see Blevins and Hotaru, and Hotaru's in like armor now, and then for whatever reason, she's kind of like, you know, this is the dude that's holding her captive and just nearly killed her grandfather, but for whatever reason, she's deciding to kind of sit here, not bound or anything or under any duress, and decides the first person she's going to attack is Arashi, even though this dude is still a threat. It's kind of confusing. But then it gets even more confusing that it kind of like Arashi's kind of made out to be someone who's, you know, potentially betraying Anna in this particular instance. I realize Arashi is the original villain from the miniseries or from the original She story. But when you're going through this, it feels a little bit rushed and somewhat, you know, not very believable the way this kind of flows. But eventually you get this cool fight between ghosts and stuff, and it's really cool. So yeah, the Akuro versus the Sohei. So this is like the demons versus the good ghosts, and you get essentially this great big battle between the two as she and Blevins fight it out and get into the dungeon, get freaky with each other. So we go and throughout this, Arashi gets possessed by a demon, and then he fights. Man, my brain's frame. You see what I mean? Like it kind of goes all over the place right here. So Arashi ends up attacking Hotaru and overpowering her, and then they fall through the roof, and then he loses his possession, and then Hotaru ends up being the one who freaking super skewers Blevins in the gut. It's like freaking, you know, the Night King from season 6 of Game of Thrones, just freaking Tom Brady throw right here. But anyhow, yeah, it's really weird. And then you get this weird scene where he's like, you know, releasing the ghosts, and he's got a spear in his gut, and then he ends up, you know, in the in this what do you call it, Shibaru or whatever it's called, where it's kind of like this Japanese fancy death where they tie him up and you look really weird, but it's kind of one of those things where you're like, you look at this sequential panel and you're like, well, wait a minute, who did this, right? He's on the floor, you know, and these people, you know, would they do this? Well, who did this, right? And it's a little bit confusing. Arashi runs off. Anna and Hotaru kind of explain to the police what happened, right? And later we get to see that her grandfather survived, and that they have avenged Shiro, the dude who was murdered in the first book right here. She gets a call. It's Arashi. The cops kind of betrayed him, so he's on the run. But he did want to tell Anna, which is this is even really weird that she is in fact not half Japanese but true Japanese. So since the original series in Anna has always been explained to have a Japanese father and an American mother. So she has green eyes and she's raised Catholic, blah, 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 blah. But interesting enough, the plot twist of Shihaikyo is that she's actually full Japanese, which is really interesting because she has green eyes. So it's kind of like one of those like, I haven't met many Japanese women with green eyes. This also means Hotaru is half Japanese, not quarter Japanese. Which that explains Hotaru, because Hotaru has blue eyes and black hair, has more of her, like a little bit of her father's features, right? So anyhow, not sure where this is going to lead to in the third book, but effectively the plot from the first book gets resolved in the second book, so it's actually a decent finish to that plot, and I'm guessing what's going to happen here is Anna's going to go to Japan to figure out, who her real mother is, etc., 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 right? So you get a little bit of, the plot gets resolved, and there's a little bit of a cliffhanger for you to go get the third book. My only complaint is that I kind of wish that this book was edited with a focus on it being a standalone and being understandable for people who want to jump on and get it, especially since this book did not contain, or this campaign didn't offer the first book as an add-on, right? It was just Shihaikyo. So this is ultimately being advertised as a standalone book rather than, as a chapter in a bigger series, right? So, overall, still enjoyed it. I just think, I think the editing should be handled differently in the next book. And I think there should be more of an emphasis on helping the reader kind of understand, and all readers, not just fans of but any kind of reader that would come in and pick up this book, to help them understand the story and get into the excitement and the action of this great campaign. Anyhow, let's get to the art. So, anyhow, I'm going to try this again, just like the One Piece video. So here we got pencils. This was done in 0.7 mechanical lead, HB. If I could do it again, I would have done it in 0.5 lead, 3H, because I need a detail to draw she really bad. But anyway, let's do this. 3, 2, 1, booyah, inks. Okay, so yeah, this is mainly inked with a, where are you, buddy? Again, my beloved 0.1 disposable Copic. Also, a lot of the, where the hell are you? Oh, the, of course, legendary 0.03 Copic for all of the details and the lines and whatnot. I'm still trying to figure out how to draw hair. I don't think I'm any good at it. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. And then, so I tend to just black out black hair or just leave it open for the most part. Sort of interesting thing, this is technically black, but there's so much detail in here, I think I'm just going to actually color it black. But anyhow, yeah, that's the inks. Let's get to colors. 3, 2, 1, booyah, colors. Okay. So most of this, again, was Copics, a lot of the R46 and the, Y08. Also did, in this case, you can barely see it, but I did the highlights with a lot of cool gray and then warm gray to kind of get the rendering on the interior here for all of this kind of lightly done. Overall, not bad. I kind of like She's color. It's a very strong primary or color-based design right here. She just kind of pops out at you for the most part. I forget which costume this is. I don't think this is the original costume. This is more like the modern costume. It's the one on this cover, by the way. But overall, not bad. Man, this video ended up way too long. So anyhow, that's the video. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. Subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications. You got any comments on Shihaikyo or my art, leave it down below. And I will see you next time.